All right, Jeff, we are live coming from Doug Rucker School HQ Training Center, and you're coming live from where? Home?
Home.
You at home?
Yes, sir.
Proudly wearing that Never Give Up hat and shirt. And so, how you been?
Been doing good. Doug, just watching all this bad weather we got down here in Houston last night.
Yeah, that was quite the little storm last night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, we were supposed to go to a softball game. We went to dinner and then supposed to go to a softball game, but it got canceled. So we headed back home and pretty bad. It wasn't too bad. The wind was blowing, but man, it wasn't nothing like what I've seen in some other areas. So,
Man.
Hey, since you're doing parking lot striping and we got a couple of viewers on, we had talked yesterday that you were going to talk a couple of tips for those that are either in it or maybe thinking about getting in it, or some of your students are watching and may remind them. So talk a little bit about some striping tips.
Oh, one of the things I found, Doug, when I was first beginning, I used to use a lot of different tips, and over the years, I came to find out that one of my favorite tips now to use is a 417, which is a standard line, which your standard line is a 4 inches and 18 feet long, according to regulations. And I learned that a 417 is a paint saver. So after that, many times I used to use in the summertime, I wasn't getting the proper amount of linear feet out of a bucket of paint. And proper linear feet should be anywhere between 1,500 to 1,800 linear feet out of a bucket. And we wasn't getting that. And because, as the temperature changed, paint changes. So it dries faster, or it draws up. Wintertime, it expands. And so we found out that a 417 was a paint saver. So actually, when you got the right person behind the machine moving at a good pace, you'll see that you'll end up getting like 1,900 linear feet out of a paint bucket, because we begin to move to that 417, and it became a paint saver. And I saw that now, wow, this 417 was not able, it was also causing us to get from like 70 lines to almost 80 lines out of a bucket of paint. So those are some of the things that I learned was that tip. And a lot of times too, Doug, I see a lot of guys, that ask questions, or they get in fear about when you're getting ready to run the radius. The radius is that curve, what you see on your fire lane or a yellow lane. You mostly see them, at your gas stations, your banks, or parking lots, on your parking lot.
When the line is going at a curve.
Right. And a lot of times, a lot of guys, they're anxious, man, how you get your hands so steady, man, I'm nervous about opening that wheel up. And at the beginning, I was the same way. I was kind of like, man, I got to open this wheel up. Is my hand steady to go around it? But as I find out, a guy by the name of Bobby Whaley taught me how to run that radius. And he said, "No, Jeff," he said, "you don't open that wheel up." He said, "You can. Oh, you can. It's not a right way or it's not a wrong way, but I prefer not to open the wheel up." So he showed me how to run that radius. That you put pressure. If you're right-handed, you put pressure on the left hand, sliding the wheel of the machine, making it go at a radius till you go to a certain amount of linear feet. Then you come back from the opposite side, and you put your pressure on the right side and run that radius, and you connect those two together, like so they can butt up together, not knowing it. And once the paint dries, if you got the right tip and you got your pressure set right, it'll just blend right in, and you won't see those two joints connected together. So those are some of the tips that I learned. A lot of guys, they always ask, man, I can't run that radius, but yeah, you can. One of the tips that I learned too about running that radius is, hey, when you get your new machine or you go rent your machine, load it up with water. With water, you can't mess up.
Right.
Water will just expand over a little bit, but it'll give you an idea that you're comfortable with running your radius.
So when you're doing the water, how is your line? I know you said it's going to spread out a little bit, but how do you figure the right amount of paint on the line, from the start to beginning? I mean, getting that pace down.
Well, one of the things you have to do, Doug, is we encourage in our class to get you some felt paper or a piece of cardboard, and you want to on the gray code, your pressure gauge is on the top. You want to have that psi between 1,500 and 2,000 or 2,500 psi's between that amount. Then you run a test line. Remember, on the tip, what I said, a 417. Let me explain that what that is too. A 417. The first number on the 4 is going to be the line size, and the 17 is the office size of the tip.
So like 4 inches.
4 inches. So it automatically comes. They sell the tips in 4 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches, 6 inches, and 8 inches. Now you can take that 4-inch tip and raise up and get a 6-inch line. But the reason I like to go with the exact size tip is because you don't want to lift that. You want to lift the arm up on your machine as less as possible. That way, you ain't got to worry about if it got a little wind outside or whatever. You don't have to worry about the overspray getting up under there, blowing it out. And also, too, Doug, another thing that I tell in the class is that paint tip, and keep in mind of a power washer tip. Well, a power washer tip, once it's been used so much, the office size on it wears out, and the machine don't have the correct pressure. Right. So that's the same thing as with a striping tip. After it's been used so long, you've been soaked it so long, hey, it begins to use pressure. And also the difference in that tip is that you'll be seeing that little overspray coming out of the tip. And that lets you know that, hey, something's going on right here. My tip is either worn out or the office is just it's completely go out. So now it's time to switch that out. So, it's just so many things to it that, it's man, it's amazing that what that little machine can do. And also on that tip, Doug, sometimes when the paint is not batched right, what I mean by batching it is you want to get 2 buckets of paint and you put a net on a net. It's kind of made like a hair net they used to wear in the kitchen back in the days when they cook it. Yeah. So you batch your paint from bucket to bucket. If the paint is not mixed right, or if the temperature is not right outside, or certain things like that, that paint will kind of clog up. Even though you done got it from the paint store where you buy it, they shook it up real good, but it's still a possibility. We're in the habit of always batching that paint, because if not, your machine can clog up on you. And on the opposite side of that tip, it has on the office, another office on the other side where you can turn it upside down, find you a area, or go back to that where you set up there where your tarp at or what, and spit it out, and then you turn it back over, and 9 times out of 10, that little claw will go back and give you that smooth, pretty line you're looking for.
Right. Talk to them a little bit about your parking lot striping course. I'm going to get a nozzle because I want to show that what you were talking about.
Hey, we got a course coming up right now, July the 18th and 19th, right here at my facility. That's held at 8826 Louetta Road, Spring, Texas, Suite 308. And in that course comes along with a 2-day course. We teach first day, we teach all educational. We talk about the ADA regulations. We talk about 5 martial laws, the different types of paint or the basic stencils you need. We talk about the proper way of setting up for a striping job. We talk about marketing tips. We talk about pricing. And also on day 2, we take you outside. We have a phenomenal outdoor course. We teach you how the proper way to lay your stencils out, spray your stencils, or fire lanes. We take you up to the front of the parking lot and let you run lines with water. So that way, because we have to do it that way because we're training you. But one of the things that we do, we make sure that when you leave our course, we have you comfortable and enough to feel like that you can go and stripe a parking lot that day. And also now, Doug, we're offering a one-on-one a one-on-one course. Of course, it costs a little more. But well, people asking me, why do it cost a little more? Well, the reason it costs a little more because I'm giving you my undivided attention Also, I'm giving you one-on-one training. I'm giving you a little bit more about the machines and stuff that I don't have time to do in a basic course, telling you some of the proper things that you need on your trailer at all times. And I had a guy ask me a question a couple of weeks ago. You know, he went out on the job site, Doug, and they forgot to cut the sprinkler system off. And he had 3 lines out there. And he had to wait X amount of hours for the lines to dry. I said, why do you have to do that? Well, the sprinklers on the line. I said, nah, man, what you need to do is go to Harbor Freight, get you a propane tank, get you a little propane torch, heat those lines up, man, dry them up, boom, and you out of there. And that was a tip that I gave him that saved him X amount of time. Well, not saving that time, but the next job he go on, that's going to save him that time that he could be at another stop. So those are some of the things that we're teaching in our course. And also, once you complete the course, we're not adding a new thing now, Doug. At the end of the course, we're going to go back and give you a 10 questionnaire to review, 10 questions to see if you was paying attention in the class. And after you do that, we ask you to go on there and give us a Google review about the class. And then when you leave there, we give you a certificate of certification showing that you have completed Mr. Shine Stripe Lot Easy as 1, 2, 3 2-day course.
Awesome. And so you're going to be doing the striping course also in Atlanta for our pressure washing training event. And so everything you just said, you're pretty much going to be doing the same thing in Atlanta, June. That's June 20th. For the training event is the 20th of June through the 22nd. But your parking lot striping is on the 21st, which is a Friday.
Right. And I also have another guy coming down with me, Mr. Peyton Roberts. He's the owner of Luxury Pressure Washer and out of Mississippi. He's bringing along a ride along as well. We show them too about, get up and get familiar with a ride along machine, because a lot of guys ask, hey man, I want to ride. Hey, we can show you how to operate that as well.
Yeah. So just to go back when you were talking about the nozzles, this is your standard yellow nozzle, and this is a white nozzle. And so this is a 40-degree nozzle, the white, and the yellow is a 15-degree nozzle. And so what that means, guys, is that on the white, the 40, you're going to have a very wide pattern. So it's going to be coming out very wide. The 15 means it's going to be narrower. But what Jeffrey was talking about, and it's very true on our nozzles too, that this orifice where the water comes out of, because of the amount of pressure in the water, these will tend to widen over time. So depending on how much you use these, you need to change these out quite frequently. When I was running 2 or 3 trucks and crews and using them every day, all day, we would change these out sometimes every 3 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks, once a month, just depending on how much they were getting used. They usually ended up looking terrible before, before the orifice would go bad. But that's very true to make sure that you're changing these out, whether it's these nozzles or on your J-rod, and most importantly to me is on your surface cleaner, because that can really affect your cleaning if you're not maintaining and changing these nozzles out on a frequent basis, again, depending on how much you're using them. So just like Jeff was saying about the paint nozzles, that's the same thing that's true with the nozzles that we use in pressure washing. So great point, Jeff. And so back to the Atlanta event on the June 20th, I'll be doing hands-on training for roof cleaning. We're going to be doing a building wash, or parts of the building. So we'll be teaching you how to clean vertical surfaces. There's some concrete there. It's an asphalt parking lot at the church we're cleaning, but we are going to be, there's some sidewalks, really bad, dirty sidewalks, and we can show you how to clean a parking lot too. We're not going to clean the asphalt, but, and then I'll be going over property protection. We'll show you what we look for when we're protecting, like this church that we're at. So you'll get to see that. And then, roof cleaning, building washing, which equates to house washing. It's a small church called Bindings Methodist Church right there in the Atlanta area. Concrete cleaning, property protection. And then Jeff on the 21st with his striping course. And then Saturday is the Difference Makers course. That's the all business conference. It's nothing about cleaning. We don't go over how to clean anything. We don't go over how to dilute bleach. But one thing we do go over that is pretty important to me in the last year and a half that I've really taken on trying to teach my students that come to my school is pricing, Jeffrey.
Right. Hey, Doug, years ago, I walked up to an older man at the gas station, and he began to question me some things about my business and things of that nature. And his words was to me, Doug, he said that if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. And that stuck with me to where I became passionate about numbers, because I was like, hey, if I want to say that I want to make $100,000 a year, so I had to set goals, and I did it in increments. My goal was to go out and make $500 a day. 500 a day times what? 5 is what? It's 2,500. So times 4, that's $10,000. So I knew that I had to go out 5 days a week and make $500 times that 12 month. That gives me $120,000 a year.
Right.
Well, 500 seems like a lot of money, but hey, man, just a little tip. What I used to do, Doug, it was okay if I say this. What I used to do, I go in there sometimes. A lot of people say this and this about the $99 guy. Well, I don't bash that, because one time I was the $99 guy, but $99 was just a way to get me into the yard. Once I use the $99 to get into now I'm not saying go do a Mancho driveway for $99. No, I didn't say that. I said I would use a standard parking lot to get in the yard to use the $99, kind of like what they do at any store. They put a window up there to show you just some of the products that's in the store, but that's when they called it window shopping. And sure, they put those products there to get you inside of the store to show you what other products or things they have available. So what I would do was use that $99 to get in there. But when I got in the yard, I would walk around and say, hey, I can do your patio for another $75. Or, hey, you got some algae around the side of your house, that's another $75. By the time I get to showing them the things around there and educating them about what I was doing, I used the $99 to get in there, but I would leave that house with $300 to $500. So I would break that down into, well, hey, if I wanted to do driveways, I knew that, hey, if I'm gonna sell them for $150, because right now I can't wash a driveway for $99. So I have a minimum. So my minimum, I know that I have to wash at least 3 driveways a day.
Right.
So 500 may look like a lot at once, but if you get in your local neighborhoods or your HOAs or whatever, and you break that number down, it can be very small. And I used to say, hey man, it's millions and millions of houses in Houston. So if I can't get 100 houses out of a million houses, well, maybe this here may not be the business for me.
Sure.
So I began to use that strategy and learn things like that, to where, hey, now I did such a good job in my client's yard that it led into residual income. One of the things that I teach in Atlanta, in a different corporate, is that, we need that residual income. Our business has to create that residual income. And those clients became residual income to me, because every holiday or something come up, they would call me, hey, I need my driveway cleaned. I need this here cleaned up. And not only that, because of my on-time response and because of my integrity and my character with them, they would refer me to other people in the neighborhood. So that became easy to make that 6 figures that I was talking about, Doug.
Absolutely. Yeah, that the $99 guys never bothered me. That's just the old, and a lot of business, I don't say every, but most every retail business does that. It's called a loss leader.
Right.
I can remember for a short period of time, many, many years ago, selling appliances and electronics. And so, they would have a big leaflet thing in the newspaper every Sunday. and they would advertise a dishwasher or a washer and dryer or an oven, something of every TV, at a ridiculously low price. And it was actually priced for a loss. I mean, if we sold it, the company lost money, but our job was to step them up to the next model, get them off that loss leader. You know, people would walk in and you would see that newspaper coiled up in their hand, and the weak guys would take off running, and us strong guys, we just head right to them and say, oh yeah, it's right over here. We'd open up, give them a little demo and say, you know, but for a little bit more money, this is your better option. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's just they call them advertised specials and loss leaders. And that's all the $99 guys, I hope, are doing.
Right.
Is it's just a way to get the phone call and get a conversation going, and then step them up to other services. So, yeah, so we'll be talking about pricing. We actually have a sheet that we're going to use that everybody will get to participate in and list your expenses out. We're going to figure out, you know, what kind of hourly rate, how many weeks you're going to work, how many days you're going to work. Excuse me, I got a little cold I think I'm coming down with, or bronchitis or something. But anyway, so yeah, we'll be talking about pricing. Kelsey, the CPA, is going to be joining us by Zoom. So she'll be talking about money matters. This is all at the Difference Makers. Jeff and I are going to be talking about commercial cleaning, how to get, excuse me, commercial clients, that type of thing. And you're talking about residual as well as different streams of revenue.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, Doug, I'm a big fan because I'm married to somebody that believes in, like they used to say, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
And she's big on teaching me. Well, she taught me how, you know, to convert my income. You know, because I'm in the power wash industry doesn't mean that I can't have a clothing line. Because I have a clothing line doesn't mean I can't be involved in real estate.
Sure.
And, you know, and my wife is big on, you know, residual income, but she's also big on having a passive income.
Sure.
And who don't want to get to passive income to where you're making money while you sleep? That's our objective as business owners, to be able to make money while we sleep. Right. So those are some of the things that I talk about, that what I did, how I use my power washing business to open up other entities of businesses through my business. Okay. So a lot of times people, you know, they get caught up in the one thing, because, and I can be honest with you, Doug, I'll be 54 years old this year, and I don't see myself at I'm giving myself probably about another year. That's what I give, you know. I don't see myself behind a stripe machine or one at the age of 56. But what am I saying? I'm going to still be connected to those things, but now it's time for me to start using my brain to create income, instead of me getting out there training my replacement, or whether I sell a company or I don't sell a company. I'm still going to be involved in it some kind of way. If there's no more than like you doing, catching the new guys that are coming in, that's coming up, that want to get in this industry. These guys need some consulting. And I don't want to be one of the guys that when he get online and ask a question to say, hey man, nah, you idiot, or this. If I said something wrong, I'm sorry. You idiot or what.
Right.
The guy's asking just because he don't know. You never know, the same guy could very well be in the same position. Well, he's in the position that you was once in. Well, what if a Doug Rucker or somebody didn't reach out to you to give you the time of day to educate you on what he just talked about, a tip, a 15 or 40 degree tip? He's asking because he don't know. He's just there trying to put food on the table for his kids. So those are one of the things that I like talking about, is show people how to do it. You know, there's an old saying, you can teach a man, you can show him, you can take a man fishing and he can eat for a day. But if you can teach him how to fish, he can eat for a lifetime.
Right.
So those are some of the things that I like to teach people, how to create that residual income to keep going on. Because guess what? We're going to see another pandemic. We just don't know when.
Right, right.
But are you going to be prepared for when the pandemic comes that, you know, you're not just focus on what's a need and what's a want. So
Right.
we got to create things that are a need. And that's one of the things that I like to do, Doug.
Yeah. I kind of liken it too. I heard many years ago, I can't remember, I think I read it in a book that, you know, you've heard the old saying where you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it.
Right.
If you can lead that horse to the water in such a route that when he gets to the water, he's going to want to drink it.
Right.
It's just a matter of getting him thirsty enough before you get to the water to make him want to drink it. And
right.
That's I always love that saying. Oil stains, you know, I get a lot of questions. I want to give another little tip and trick about oil stain removal. Back when I did residential, we used to get a lot of calls because of HOAs ticketing driveways because they have a big old oil stain in their driveway. And so we had a minimum charge that if we're going out just to treat and clean the oil stain, not remove it, but clean it, treat it, remove the hydrocarbons. I had a minimum charge of $350. Now, if it was a really short, small driveway, then absolutely I'd go ahead and clean the whole driveway, but sometimes we wouldn't. But I want to stress to guys out there, number one, you've got to have a good degreaser, okay? And you're going to treat that oil stain with that degreaser. You're not going to use an acid on oil stains, but you're going to use a good degreaser, have a good street broom so you can scrub it in and agitate it. Let it dwell for a few minutes. The longer you can, the better. Most of the times we don't let things dwell long enough because we're too impatient, you know. And then, you know, most degreasers these days are going to work fine with cold water. If you just have something like at a restaurant or someplace that's really built up with a lot of like outside the back door and around the dumpster areas, or if you ever been in a drive-through through Chick-fil-A and look down at their back door, you can see a lot of times it's just really dirty because they track in and out of there. And then about once every week or 2 weeks, all of a sudden it'll be clean. But anyway, those cases are when hot water really comes in handy. But for most residential and a lot of parking lots, cold water and a very good degreaser is going to take care of that. But here's the key that I always found, Jeff, is you've got to set your customer expectations, okay? And you've got to let them know when I leave, it's not going to look like the oil stain was never there. It's not going to look like new concrete. It's not going to look like the other concrete. There's still going to be a shadow stain that is left, and it's going to look like basically the concrete is still wet. And a lot of times that's just moisture that's still in the pores of the concrete that have to bake out. Sometimes it's just never going to get better. But particularly on the HOA ones, we always found if we told the customer, if you'll just email your HOA and let them see the invoice that you paid somebody to come out and clean it, that's usually going to be good enough for them because they just want to see you spend some money and get it treated, you know. So I don't know what's your experience with that? Pretty much the same or something to add to it?
Yeah, Doug, I found a little trick that works now, and this is not to try to put any decrease out of business. What we do now, we found out in the striping industry that we was running up on a lot of gray outs, and we was having to mix paints and things of that nature. So I said, so this may work in the power washer industry as well. So they have a product which is called concrete in a can. Mm-hmm. And we clean the oil stain like you did, we agitate to get it up. So we say, well, let's go back and spray it. And it was a kind of a new concrete driveway. So what we did, we went back and bought some concrete in a can, and we went over there and it blended in immaculate, just like concrete. And come to find out, we told the customer to let it dry like we do on the parking lot with the striping. Boom. The oil stain was gone. But the degreaser did not. We told them that the degreaser was not going to take the oil stain out, because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, that concrete is kind of like a sponge. It has pores.
Yeah.
And it sits down inside of the oil, sits down inside of that. And when you agitate it, it comes out, but it's the oil just constantly rise up and it comes back in. It's kind of like a tattoo on your arm. You can go get the tattoo removed, but it's still going to have the shadow of what the tattoo was.
Correct.
So those are some of the things that we try to educate on when we out doing, commercial oil movements or whatever like that. But that's one of the trips that we learned, and it did work for us. And I shared it with a couple of guys in our one-on-one course, and they were blown away with it. It's like, wow, we never thought of nothing like that. But they also mix that in that concrete in a can. They make it in 3 different colors to match the older concrete, and they make it for newer and in between.
Well, I wish you'd have shared that with me years ago. I could have used that.
Yeah, I
just learned. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. You mentioned about the shadow. Yeah. Same thing with gum. When you remove gum, you've got to let your customer know ahead of time that you're going to have shadow stain left underneath that gum. There's just nothing that's going to remove it. It might, depending on how much sun it gets, dissipate over time, but it's very rare, that's going to happen. We don't never promise the customer that. So anyway, man, we've gone on for about 35 minutes here. We're probably boring everybody to death. Well, folks, thanks y'all for joining. Don't forget, Atlanta, Georgia is the pressure washing training, June 20th to 22nd. You can register at pressurewashingschool.com/events. We've already got several that have already registered. We've got a hotel there, Country Senate Inn and Suites. All the information is listed there at pressurewashingschool.com/events. You'll see the Atlanta event. And then your training is coming up when?
July the 18th and the 19th, right here in Houston at 8826 Louetta Road, Spring, Texas, 77389, Suite 308. And you can also register on MrShinePowerWashing.com.
Mr. Shine.
See out there, but especially guys, I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this Atlanta show, because I told Doug we can teach a little different
right
on the road.
That's
and
right.
I love teaching on the road because I'm able to share some things that I wouldn't share locally.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank y'all. Jeff, thanks. We'll be talking to you soon. And if y'all have any questions about the Atlanta event, you can hit me up by email at pressurecleaningschool@gmail.com. Y'all have a very, very blessed weekend.
All right, Doug.
See you, Jeff.